Good morning, my beautiful friends. I am coming to you live from my pool cabana. Yes, spring has officially sprung, or perhaps summer has. It's really warm here today and looking forward to a great day out with the twins. We're going to a wildlife park with them and some friends, so thought I would come in here early and talk to you about an incredible concept called the second arrow, which I think could help you all. It certainly helps me. So I want to tell you a story first of all, though. So there was this woman, and she had a 20-year-old son, and he had just got his driver's license, and he was really excited, and he wanted to borrow her car to go visit some friends one night. It was a school night, so to speak. He was studying. So she said, no, it's a school night, it's, you just need to stay at home tonight. You're not taking my car. He continued to ask her. And as, hey, Joan, and as kids can do, they wear us down until eventually we say yes. We know their tricks. Hey, Jan, welcome to Take 10 with another Jen. So this 20-year-old guy, I'm just sharing a story. So he continually asked his mum to borrow her car keys and her car to go visit his mates on a school night. She said no, but eventually he wore her down, so she gave him the keys. But she said, call me as soon as you get there, and because he just got his license, and please be home by 10. Obviously, he's an adult, but, was living under her roof, and she was quite protective of him. So anyway, as soon as he got the keys, he forgot all about his promises to his mum. He didn't call her. He went, and she'd also said, don't drink. So he went to this gathering with his friends. He had some beers and was driving home about midnight, but got in a really, really serious car accident. She found out. She rushed to the hospital. She was visiting him in the ICU unit. She didn't know whether he was going to live or die, and it was absolutely terrifying, and she just felt just completely helpless and hopeless and so scared that she was going to lose her only son. She ended up getting a phone call from a friend, and this friend was so critical of her. This friend was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you let him drive. He's just got his license. I can't believe you let him drink. You're practically a murderer. If he dies, then the blood's going to be on your hands. And it was just the most horrific phone call to get. And she just felt so angry at this friend, but also just took it all on board, was just like, oh my gosh, she's right. I'm practically a murderer. Say something really bad happens to him, it's going to be all my fault. So that's really bad, isn't it? But I guess the thing is, that friend didn't actually call her. That friend was her own self-critical voice that was really, really self-deprecating and, really, really mean to her. And the thing is, we do that to ourselves all the time. So the things that we would never dream of saying to a friend, the things we would never dream of even thinking about our friends, we direct that same venom towards ourselves, and we call that the second arrow. So it's actually a Buddhist parable. So the idea is that, the first arrow is when, something bad happens, and that's quite painful. But the second arrow is the arrow that we point at ourselves in terms of self-criticism or complaining or gossiping or trying to take control of a situation that we have no control over, getting angry, getting upset. And that's the suffering. So the first arrow is just inevitable pain that we can't help avoid when we face situations, And the second arrow is that suffering that we place on ourselves, mostly unnecessarily. So, and it's actually optional. So the second arrow represents our reaction to a bad event. And we really need to ask ourselves, do I really need to shoot that second arrow? Because that second arrow is full of poison. Good morning, Det. I'm just sitting out in my pool cabana. So that was the example of the poor woman who nearly lost her son, and she shot that second arrow at herself because she gave him the car keys. But what about the more minor examples that happen to us all the time? In fact, it happened to me this morning. So I'm taking the twins to this like snow forest next weekend. It's not actually like skiing, but they're going to toboggan and they're going to play in the snow. They've never seen the snow. We're not a snow family, so to speak. But I'm taking them for their 9th birthday. My sister and I and her boy, we were so excited. Then I found out from a friend who's also going that same weekend that it's been cancelled because it's really sunny now, but it's also going to be rainy weather, so it's been cancelled. I hadn't received an email yet, and my first thought was, like, the first arrow was, oh my goodness, that sucks. Oh my gosh, they're going to be so disappointed. Oh. And then the second arrow was, okay, where's my email? Did I actually book correctly? Have they even got my booking? Like, why haven't they told me yet? Like, this is really bad service. I was already a bit skeptical about this place because of the really dodgy booking service they have. But then, oh my gosh, where is my email? And I started getting a little bit angry. And then I thought to myself, there's that second arrow, do I really need to shoot that second arrow, or can I just feel, disappointed and then kind of get into action in order to book something else just as cool for them? You see, when we focus on that second arrow more than we need to, it actually prevents us from noticing and noticing other opportunities that we can now plug into, or perhaps even noticing the rainbow that comes out of, bad situations. So I'm going to share with you just 5 very simple steps about how to cope with this second arrow. Good morning, Kath. So the first step is, as I always share with this stuff, it's just noticing. It's noticing that first arrow. Awareness with this kind of stuff is absolutely key, and having insight, because then you can obviously do something about it. So the first step is noticing when we get that first arrow, which is the piece of news that's quite disappointing or really, really painful. Perhaps, somebody has died, perhaps something's been cancelled, perhaps we've fallen sick, perhaps we've been in a car accident, perhaps the weather is raining on our wedding day, whatever it might be. So feel that emotional pain for what it is, disappointment, sadness, grief, anger, upset. So feel that, because the more that you actually plug into that and feel that and go with that, then you're going to move closer to that process of acceptance rather than moving into the second stage, which is the second arrow. So the second arrow would be things like anger, blame, self-criticism, gossip, complaining. So the second step is catching your impulse to add a second arrow. So really try to catch it. And a way that you can do that is step 3, which is observe, which is really, a lot of that those Buddhism type principles of observing and noticing. So you can say things like, I'm noticing that I'm feeling really angry right now, or I notice that I'm starting to complain about that situation or that person. But don't shoot a third arrow to yourself, which is judging you for having a second arrow. Okay, so I'm going to make up the concept of the third arrow, which is judging the second arrow. So rather than doing that, just say things to yourself, which I've taught you before, which is like, I'm having the thought that, I'm starting to blame, that person for, that thing happening. I'm having the thought that I'm a really bad person for letting that situation arise. I'm having the thought that I want to gossip about that person. So just observe and notice. Step back or zoom out, as we say. And rather than kind of zooming in and getting all lost and entangled in the situation, feel yourself kind of zooming out and observing yourself from a point of perspective. The fourth step is, do I really need to shoot that second arrow? So we have a choice for that second arrow. It is optional. I think that life is complex and sometimes painful enough without having to optionally or voluntarily shoot that second arrow. And I think part of that comes from that concept of fairness that I've spoken about before. You know, who told us that life was supposed to be fair? Who told us that things don't just get cancelled when, you know, the organisation feels it's actually safer to cancel, like, for example, the snow situation? Who told us that we only get to suffer a certain amount of, you know, negative situations? No one. You know, there's an element of this stuff in life that is quite random, and although most of us like to believe that things happen for a reason, I tend to think that, you know, life is a little bit more random than that, and that helps me not to get too worked up and bogged down in the concept of fairness. Once you realize that and really work with that, it makes a big difference. And also step 5, which is an easy one, give yourself a big hug for creating a pattern interrupt. You know, if this is a pattern in your life that you shoot that second arrow and maybe even that third arrow, which is judging yourself for having the second arrow, then give yourself a huge hug, because you are starting to change a really ingrained pattern that us as human beings all have. But, you know, Buddhism principles really help us to try and move away from. Now, I think I had one more note. Yep. So remember that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. So we can't always control that first arrow, but we can control that second arrow. That is an optional extra. All right. Cheers to you. Have an awesome day. It's a public holiday here. Love you all. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye.